My name's Rich, and this is your daily dose of F1 news. How are we all doing this morning? Today, we're going to be talking about Fred Vasseur and the concept that Ferrari have with their 2023 car and whether they should be looking at changing it or not. We're also going to be looking into the W14 of Mercedes and what Toto Wolff has had to say. And first of all, we're going to jump into what Helmut Marko has been saying about the Aston Martin AMR 23. So without further ado, please do make sure you're hitting that like on the stream and also subscribing down below. But let's get into it, guys, with the first talking point of the morning. Oh, we go over the other side for him. Helmut Marko of Red Bull has been echoing other sentiments that have been shared among the other Red Bull staff. But as usual, Helmut Marko goes a little bit deeper on what he thinks and what he has to say about the situation. And this is to do with, or relating to, Checo Perez's comment about 3 Red Bulls being on the podium. Now, I had a little bit of a rant about this yesterday, where I shared my opinion, and I didn't pull any punches. I definitely shared my opinion on what I think about this yesterday. But I'm still here to bring you the news, and Helmut Marko, it's always a good thing when Helmut Marko speaks, because it tends to be controversial. More often than not, it's wrong, but it does give me something to talk about, and it's entertaining. So what he said is Aston Martin's former Red Bull crew clearly have a good memory. And to quote, he said to Service TV, "It's true that what Fallows had in his head cannot be erased." Now, he's referring to Dan Fallows, now the technical chief over at Aston Martin. He goes on to say, "Copying the focus is not prohibited, but can you copy in such detail without having documentation of our car? We had 3 Red Bulls on the podium, only the last one with a different engine." And honestly, I don't know. I cannot even begin. Well, I did. I ranted for about 15 minutes over this yesterday. But what are Red Bull talking about? Is this an internal memo that goes around within Red Bull that like the first one saying, "Guys, what random stuff can we come up with to sound controversial? Email back," and then someone goes, you know what we could say? That the staff that left have taken documentation. Well, you realise how serious those allegations are? Yeah, but, we just say shit, don't we? And it kind of feels like that with Red Bull, honestly. Now, what... I think there's more quotes. I think there's... yeah, he said, "I said it before the race. Alonso will be third." So did I, but that doesn't mean anything. His fight with Hamilton was incredible. It was a tough duel, but fair, really old school. If Fernando had started further up, he would surely have been a threat to us. And Christian Horner said, "Based on the one race, you'd have to say they were second strongest here. They've obviously done a good job over the winter. They say imitation is the biggest form of flattery, and, it's good to see the old car doing so well." I honestly cannot get with this. I truly cannot get with this. I really can't get with this. I'm sorry. I've got a picture of him there, but let me just bring up the picture that I had yesterday, I hope. I can't get with what are Red Bull talking? What are they talking about? Am I the only one that is seriously just like, what are you on about? What are they on about? Why are they going on so much about that? There we go, look. Here we go. Let me just sort this out a little bit. What is he? I need to mess around quite a bit here, but give me a second. Right. What are they on about? What are they on about? What are they on about? That's the bottom one is the Red Bull. Can you see the difference? I can. What are they on about? I honestly I can't fathom. I don't know what this whole narrative. I don't get it. I and the problem is people are latching onto it, but you use your eyes. Like that, if anything, look, I'm a nerd and I look at Formula One cars a lot. That Aston Martin is more a copy of last season's Alpine, if anything. I promise you. Honestly, I don't know. Honestly, I'm so baffled. Why? What is it? Imitation is the biggest form of flattery. Look at it. What? It's got 4 wheels and a front and rear wing. What are they on about? I'm so I don't understand where this is coming from. And unfortunately, because part of this is me looking around news articles, looking on socials, trying to find stories, trying to find stuff credible to make content about, everyone is going on about how Aston Martin are cheating. Like, how is Helmut Marko? Look at these pictures. How is Helmut Marko saying, copying the focus is not prohibited, but can you copy in such detail without having documentation of our car? What? What is he on about? What? I don't need any documents to copy that. Like, what do we do? Especially that. If they've used documents to copy that and created that, they've done it wrong. What? Honestly, Helmut Marko, every time he opens his mouth, it's every time I've quoted him on this in the last 6 months, every single time I've quoted him, it's been wrong. Every single time Helmut Marko's opened his mouth, it's been wrong. Every time. Every single time. But I don't get this with... I really don't get this with Red Bull. I think... Helmut the helmet. It must be... I think it is a genuine sort of marketing thing, because they know it creates conversation, and they know that in modern life, people actually don't care about facts in any way. Like, facts don't matter. They don't matter in any way whatsoever. Now, look, I hate to be really boring about this. I do hate to be boring about this. But if you own a business, what are you employing people for, right? So if me being a content creator, I need an editor. I'm not going to go and employ a landscape gardener. I'm going to go and employ an editor that has got editing experience and a show reel and things like this, right? That I can go, oh, they're an editor, right? If you are Aston Martin and you're wanting an aerodynamicist, who do you go for? Adrian Newey. Can't get Adrian Newey. Okay, let's get the next best thing, his right-hand man. You're not employing Dan Fallows for his input on interior decorating. You're employing him because he knows what he's talking about. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean, though. I don't understand this whole... It's true that what Fallows had in his head cannot be erased. No, that's the point. He's a technical chief. He's an aerodynamicist. You don't want to erase what's in his head. That's the value, sort of thing. If it's like saying Adrian Newey has this, he decides he's going to go and work at Ferrari. What is he not going to take his 40 years of experience with him? Is he not going to do that? Is he just going to go there and go, I've forgotten everything. I've forgotten everything I've ever done ever. You're just getting basically a shell of a human, and I know nothing. What is a front wing? No, you're employing him because of who he is and what he. Oh my lord, what is this? Honest to God, stupidity that is infecting Formula One other than Red Bull's management. And I'm going to say it because this is the stupidest shit I've read in so long. It really is. And it's getting right on my tits. It seems daily something just comes out where they've said the most ignorant, annoying stuff. And it really gets to me. But anyway, I was going to stay chilled with it. But look, I'm not anti-Red Bull. I'm really not. I envy a lot of and respect a lot about that team. But don't come out with stuff like this. Stuff like this. Ugh, it's rubbish. It's like saying a football manager can't use a formation they used at a former club. Exactly. You're employing a football manager for his ethos, for his mentality, and for what he brings to your team, aren't you? Yeah. It is like that, Matthew. And the weird thing, I think the thing I really can't get my head around is that people are going with it. People are going, that guy's gone to that team and he still knows things. Yeah? It's like you going into Tesco's, you see a tin of beans. You know what a tin of beans is? You go into Asda's, there's a tin of beans there. Like, you're not going to go, what's that? What's that there? It's a tin of beans. Oh, anyway. Another day of Red Bull. Just doing Red Bull things. I don't know. It's baffling. It is baffling me. And I'm going in circles because I'm ranting about it. It's just so weird. It's so weird. But whatever. Right then. Next story. We're going to move on to Toto Wolff has been talking about the Mercedes W14 and basically where they are and what they need to do. They were talking about Aston Martin with Toto Wolff and what they've done over the winter, and he just said it's just radical. They deserve to be where they are because they've done a fantastic job. The good news is that there's a lot of Mercedes in there, so we know exactly what to pinpoint. And that'll be very helpful in recovery. And that's actually a point that Lewis Hamilton made in saying that half of the Aston Martin is a Mercedes. Now, it's a little bit of a stretch, but it's my understanding you've basically got the rear suspension, the gearbox, the engine, and I think a couple of more components that are out of the that's what Mercedes sell to their customer team should they want it, and that's what Aston Martin have got. So, the engine is there. The rear suspension, interestingly, that's the interesting thing, is there because it shows you, doesn't it, the differences car to car, because we know, and they've even said that Mercedes are rear limited and were rear limited in Bahrain, yet Fernando Alonso on the same rear suspension and gearbox that it attaches to and stuff like that, they were, well, you saw, it doesn't need any explanation. Alonso passing Hamilton, you don't need to explain it really. And it just shows you the difference, even though it's meant to be the same stuff, right? So it shows you that it's a little bit of it's more than a little bit of an aero thing. And what he has also said is he feels like the deficit to Red Bull is double or triple what it was at the end of last season, or very well could be in other tracks. And he was asked about what they're going to change or what they're thinking about changing, and he just said that's a good question and we'll tackle that at the beginning of the week, what the next step is. When you look at where we were at the end of the season, where it seemed like we caught up a lot and it was just a matter of which circuit suited us and which not, it seems like we almost doubled, if not tripled, the gap to Red Bull. This is what we need to look at. Everything in between, the Ferrari and the Aston, that's just a sideshow. Having said that, what Aston Martin was able to achieve is a good inspiration because they came back from 2 seconds off the pace to being a second quickest team. Everything is bad. The single lap pace is still good, but in the race we saw the consequences, and to put it bluntly, we're lacking downforce and sliding the tyres and going backwards. So that seems to be the main issue, that they're just lacking that downforce, that general sort of downforce generation across the platform of the car. You know, and previously we've seen smart solutions to such things, like with the Red Bull. It used to run a very profound rake where the front was lower than the rear, and that in effect made the entire car a wing. So they're basically saying that is their big issue, that they're lacking downforce. And that is curious, because going into Bahrain, I'm not sure whether George Russell did run the new spec rear wing, but Lewis's rear wing was definitely a lower downforce spec, and they're still lacking in he's lacking in downforce having run that, and it makes you wonder, are they still draggy? Now, obviously, there was a lot of focus on Mercedes last season, and one of the main issues seemed to be it was very draggy. And I think people sometimes get confused with this, as if downforce and drag are the same thing. It's true generally, I suppose, that if you're creating lots of downforce, you're going to be draggy, but it's not the same thing, because the downforce is the downward force generated there as the drag is as you're going through the air. And they're not one in the same. You can have a high downforce car like the Red Bull without the drag, you know. And it's, I mean, if you know all that, if you know how to work that, you're an F1 aerodynamicist, right? But I think that's the issue that Mercedes are really struggling with, that balance of how do they create lots of downforce while not being draggy. And you've got, and indeed those, I don't even know what the mainstream like media outlets are calling it, but the knuckles, the Ferrari-esque sort of, I don't know, dips in the upper engine cover of the Mercedes, they are there to reduce drag specifically, and they are inspired by the Ferrari, and they've even said that. And they're reducing drag. And yeah, I wish I was an aerodynamicist sometimes, so I could go, oh, I know what they need to do there. But I suppose if I could do that, then I'd be employed by Mercedes. But that seems to be the Mercedes problem, that they're not creating enough downforce. And like you said, that basically, I can sort of explain this. Where is it? Everything is bad. Bluntly, they're lacking downforce and sliding the tires and going backwards. So what the problem is obviously the downforce pushes the car down onto the circuit, and grip is all good. And when the grip is lessened, they're putting more work onto the tire surface, which means it'll slide across the surface of the track, like understeer and oversteer and stuff. And what that does, it just generates more heat on the tire surface, and that just makes cars slower in Formula One. It really does. What we did see coming into the weekend was, towards the end of the lap, Mercedes were one of those teams that on the soft tires were slowing down towards the end of the lap because they were cooking the tires, basically. But that is, in essence, a really simplified way of saying it, whereas the Red Bull and the Aston Martin really do look after the tyres, as evidenced, and the Ferrari doesn't either. But there you go. He said as well that, I'm sure, let me just have a look. They've looked at other ideas, and we haven't stood still, he said as well. It is not only since 2 weeks ago when we saw we hadn't been able to close the gap, we have done it. We've been open-minded, still with an emphasis on making this existing car work, obviously, but we have looked at different concepts. We've set ourselves high targets, and we achieved them. It is where we set these targets collectively and how we need to change the perspective, which is an interesting perspective and something I look forward to. I would rather win every race and continue to win the championship after championship, but this is now the real challenge for me, and an interesting and painful one. So they are looking at different concepts and what to do, and it's a difficult one under the cost cap. What are Mercedes to do? Are they going to completely change? Now, Toto has said about different concepts, and it's Mike Elliott, isn't it? I think he has said that the car won't look like other cars, and that what they've come in is very much an evolution, and that's on its way now to the car. It'll still look like the Mercedes, but it's going to be a big evolution, so that's on the way. And Lewis Hamilton said a plan B, where it's a totally different car, basically. He just said it's complete rubbish because they can't afford to do that under cost cap. So I'd love to know your thoughts on that and what you think of that, guys. But there we are. That is the Mercedes story today. Now, I've had a vote going in chat. How many people have voted on it? We've got a few votes on it. I've had a vote going in chat about Ferrari. Will Ferrari change the concept of their car? And 60% of you think no. And this comes after, well, the point of this is that Fred Vasseur, the new boss of Ferrari, has made some comments. And, you know, upon reading these, there's a lot of logic here. There is a lot of logic here. He says, it's a shame not to finish the first one, but before we can draw any conclusions on the failure, we have to understand exactly what happened. But overall, I would say that the picture is not the one we expected before the race. If I wanted to summarise the situation, I would say that on quali pace, we are there. We are matching Red Bull, at least in Bahrain, and that's a positive point. Now we have to be fully realistic. If we want to improve, we have to have a clear picture of the situation, and the reliability is not at the level we need. And he was asked whether the Ferrari can be developed to match Red Bull. And this is the interesting quote for me. I'm completely convinced about this. I never saw a car that was able to match the pace of another one in quali and not be able to in the race. Then it is a matter of setup and some choices on the car. But this is not a matter of concept at all. I don't think we will have to go in this direction. And he makes a really, really good point. Now, we've always had these sayings, really, in and around like Formula One and watching Formula One, where you've got your quali pace and you've got your race pace, right? Does anyone else feel the same as me, that the difference in quali pace and race pace is huge? Like, it's really big now compared to what it has been in the past. I don't know if any of you guys agree, but I think it has. And when we've talked about it before, it's been maybe a tenth or two when they're talking about race trim and quali trim and stuff like this. Now we're talking like seconds a lap. It's a really big difference now in qualifying and race pace. And I agree with Vasseur's logic there, that I mean, I never saw a car that was able to match the pace of another one in quali and not be able to in the race. Then it's a matter of setup and some choices in the car. I probably agree with that, you know. And it's basically like they have to figure out the what's making that car tick. And there's been a lot of focus, really, on Ferrari and their strategy and stuff like that. But look, I've made the point quite a few times the other way around. But Ferrari will be aware that with Sainz, they were only 3 seconds ahead of Mercedes, who were on about changing everything, you know, potentially. And it's a difficult one, isn't it? Do you think teams start to compromise qualifying so they have a better race pace? Could it make quali a little bit boring now? So I think honestly, Chris, I think that's always gone on, honestly, to a certain extent. I think now I think to a point it's always gone on. You know, we've had quotes before plenty of times where people have said about, you know, we're thinking of the race and so on and so forth. So no, I don't think it'll change what we see, because I think that's a thing that has gone on for a long time. Unless you've, like back in the days of refueling, you would get, sometimes you would get a team doing a glory run on low fuel for qualifying. And it was even quite rare then, but it did happen. But no, I don't think it's going to change how qualifying happens and how we see qualifying. But it's interesting, though. I was just thinking the parallels between the Ferrari and the Mercedes teams, isn't it? Because they're both sort of thinking, I think. Well, Mercedes, I think the hand has been forced into talking about concepts. I think everyone has gone on and on and on so much about concepts that they have been forced into talking about it, right? I wonder whether both teams remain convinced about their concepts. Now, a thing I was thinking about was if the cost cap didn't exist, would all the cars look like Red Bulls now? And I feel like the answer is yes. I feel like the answer is yes. Because historically, that's what's happened within Formula One. You have the team that clearly gets the handle on the new formula of regulations really, really well, and then the rest of the teams follow suit. Like this, that I think that's why I'm finding the the previously discussed Red Bull, Helmut, Marko, Christian Horner comments so stupid, because it's always been a thing within Formula One that the fastest car becomes the bar. The other teams try and figure out that concept and, frankly, copy it. It's always been a thing in Formula One. And I suppose Red Bull are banking on and winning on the fact that there are that many new fans that don't know that they're falling for it completely, and it's a bit sad. Nick says, tyre degger's been massive for Ferrari, has it not? Yep, that's with Leclerc saving an extra pair of softs, drop off compared to the Red Bull. Well, yeah, this is the thing. And like John said as well, that was an issue last season as well. And that's what they've got to look at, isn't it? Why they're eating through the tyres, and they've got far more intelligent people than me working on it. How is it that the Red Bull can create that downforce and be so kind to the tyres when the Ferrari can't? And the Mercedes can't, but then you've seen the Aston Martin that's pretty good on the tyres, right? And look, okay, I accept certain drivers may have a slightly higher skill in tyre management, but the differences are tiny at this level of driver. The difference between a Checo Perez and a Valtteri Bottas at tyre management will be so minute, the real difference here is chassis. The difference is the car. Charles Leclerc isn't that bad at looking after his tyres in comparison with Max Verstappen. He just isn't. It's not a thing. It's down to, the car, the geometry, how the downforce applies itself, and where, like we've just been on about, there's not enough downforce on the Mercedes, so they're scrubbing the tyres, generating too much heat and wrecking the tyres in comparison with a Red Bull or an Aston Martin. Well, there you go, Chris. Like when the Brawn diffuser was on the Brawn, everyone wanted one. Yeah, and it's just a strange thing. And and again, John, last season, I had quite a few people argue with me on that point, John, saying, well, Ferrari had the faster car, while not looking at the bigger picture. I mean, I know that's not what you're doing, but not looking at the big picture of race pace and who was faster in race. And look, no one's who watched Bahrain this weekend. Max Verstappen was pulling away a second a lap, basically. You know what I mean? And it's just, and okay, yes, Max Verstappen is an elite driver, double world champion. He's not a second a lap faster, like in pure skill, than anyone on that grid. No, none of the drivers are. None of them. I know that might be a bit of a newsflash, but that Red Bull is staggering, and it is up to it's not their fault. It's up to the rest of the teams to catch up. And Ferrari, it sounds like they're convinced. Well, Vasseur says he is completely convinced this car can be developed to be as fast as the Red Bull? Can it be? Don't know. Don't know. The jury is out. Maybe they'll take a step into Jeddah. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, please do make sure you've hit the like on the stream and subscribed down below, guys. I very much appreciate you hanging out with me this morning. It's been a pretty good show. We've had a little bit of chatter. Obviously not that controversial, but there we go. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I'll be live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. with the latest F1 news. And please do maybe come over and join me over on Twitch at Pit Lanes, because I'm going to do some iRacing soon. All right, guys, thanks a lot, and I'll see you later. Cheers. Bye-bye.